Hey guys, welcome back to Lofi-Ledger, where I break down the market insights and movements from the perspective of a data scientist. Today we're going to talk about why does it take so long for markets to move and why does it take so long for crypto to move in general, right? And also, when can we expect the next move to happen? So these are the two things that we're going to try to talk about today. So basically, what usually happens is we experience a lot of these moves really fast and then wait for the next move to happen, right? So, for example, recently, everyone seems like they're waiting for Bitcoin to bottom. Bitcoin has already dropped like 50-60%. So, if um, we look at the price, Bitcoin is already down around, 40, 50, around 50% from the all-time high, right? And people are saying, "Hey, when is that the bottom? Is that it?" And a lot of people online are saying that the bottom is not in yet, mainly because the previous bottoms happened at much bigger, you know, drops. So, for example, the last bottom was at around 76% drop, and the cycle before that had a the cycle before that had a even bigger 84% drop, right? So, I mean, going just from this pattern, 76, 84, there's like a 8% yeah, 8 like around 8% difference. So, if this was gonna be an 8% difference, this would put it at a 68% drop, right? So, um, so if I just put this out at the top and then do a 68% drop, 68% drop would put us around over here at 30, at around $38,000, right? So that's why a lot of people are saying that Bitcoin is gonna drop more to around 30, $40,000, right? Because just from these last few all-time high, just to draw, diminishing losses, um, we can expect around 68% drop, and now that hasn't happened yet, right? So why does it feel so long? And when can this happen, right? A lot of people get frustrated in the markets waiting for the next move to happen, wondering if it'll ever happen, and then maybe sometimes they just put their money in or give up or do other kinds of decisions without getting a clear idea of when to expect certain moves to happen. To be clear, this isn't a sure thing, right? This 68% drop isn't a sure thing, but it gives us an idea rather than just twiddling our thumbs and wondering what is the possible low, right? This gives us an idea of when it'll happen. So there are two things to approach this when answering the question. Okay, when is it gonna happen, right? Um, so firstly is to just actually look at previous movements. So just like how we did these drops to like kind of guesstimate the bottom, for us to get a clear idea of when it'll happen, we can also copy previous movements and overlay it into our graph and then figure out when that approximate date is going to happen. So, for example, I can take a bar pattern here. So, for example, from this top to the bottom, I can just grab that. And if I overlay this on our top now, you can see this first part followed pretty similarly. But if we put that down and see where it bottomed, you can see that this is saying that the bottom would be somewhere around October, right? If there was another bottom. So we copied that one, but what if it's more similar to the 2018 one, right? So if I go here and take this bar pattern, just take it from the top all the way to the bottom, right? And we copy this over. And we copy this over. You can see that would also indicate that the bottom will be around October. And we can do this again for this small drop in 2019, and maybe this is more similar to where it is now, right? So if it was more similar to the 2019 one, and we put it over here to the top, you can see this one was gonna say around June. So now we have like a kind of time frame to work around on when we can expect this bigger bottom to occur. So these charts based historically from past cycle movements, it's gonna be around June to October, right? That's June to October or like early November, right? Because that's like October 26th. So this gives us a rough idea of when to expect the low to be. And a lot of people are saying, hey, is that even scientific? All you did was extrapolate the fractals from previous and overlay it in in the current chart, right? Well, there's two things there. One is no one really knows what's gonna happen in the future, right? If you had the ability to see to the future, that would be literally a superpower, right? All we can really do is make estimates of the future based on previous historical movements. And so what we did here is we did get historical moves, overlaid it here, and then gave us an idea of when it can happen. Right? It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. It is better than psychologically just waiting for an esoteric date that you don't even have an idea when it can happen, right? So at least this gives an idea of when to decide a time frame of operating, when will that like actual low will be, right? So yeah, and you should be extremely skeptical on if anyone says that they know perfectly where the bottom is and when it's gonna happen. But at least this does gives an idea. It narrowed it from, oh, it can happen anytime, to now it's gonna happen somewhere between July and October, right? Another way to kind of look at this is through a different lens. Historically, these are the movements that it did in the previous major highs, right? And we just measured it from our recent previous high. But maybe we want to measure every possible kind of percentage moves and get the average of how those moves have played out to give us an idea. Okay, I'm expecting another drop. So um, for example here, we're kind of expecting this 68% drop. We've already dropped 51%, right? So now we're just waiting for another drop to happen. When can we expect that to happen, right? So if we look at this and get the the actual price drop that's gonna happen here. So from this bottom, we're expecting another 36% drop, right? From the bottoms, or like we're expecting another, like from the current, which is around here, from the current price, oh, we're expecting another 47% drop, right? So we've already had the initial 50% drop, and we're expecting another, 30 to 40% drop, 30 to 50% drop. When is this next drop gonna happen? We know that the bottom is around, July to November, right? Early November, late October. Um, but can that align with this next drop? Is the next drop gonna be it, right? So a way we can do it is actually through through this chart. So this is a chart that I made on my website, Lofi-Ledger.com. It's free to use if you guys want to make an account. But basically, what this graph does is it shows how many days it took for each point in the price of Bitcoin. So this one is the price of Bitcoin. How many days did it take for each point in that graph to reach a certain up or down movement of like 5%, 20%, etc. So for example, if I set this at a 10% drop, you can see at the peak, at the very peak in March 19, 2021, it took it around 200 days for that price to get a 10% increase, right? And that makes sense because this was an all-time high and crypto had crashed. So it took like 200 days, which is somewhere around here, for it to reach a 10% increase in price, right? So what this shows us is we can actually calculate, so each point in time, when did it get a 10% increase? So for example, over here in July 7, 2023, it only took 88 days for it to get a 10% increase, right? And it like plots the summary here for that threshold. So the minimum was 1 day. It found there was a 1 day thing in this chart where it found a 10% increase in 1 day. But on average, it took 113 days for any point in time to experience a 10% increase. And 50% of the time, it took 26 days. So the median was 26, and this was 113. We can actually use this graph to make this kind of guesstimate on when we can expect the next move to happen, right? So for example, right now, we are looking at a potential 35% to 47% drop in price. So we go to the website, we click down and we check, okay, how long will it take for the 30% drop, right? So this is historically all the 30% drops. You can see that there are parts of the graph that are empty, and that's because those parts never experienced a 30% drop even until now. And that makes sense because when the price was at, $200, Bitcoin never went lower than that ever. So the values are empty. But I mean, for the prices that did experience a 30% drop, right? This is what it looks like, and we can have the average and the median of those movements. So here we can see that on average a 30% drop, if it does happen, happens at around 142 days, right? And the median is around 94 days. So if we just get the latest day, which is today, and we're expecting another 30% drop from today, that would put us at around August 4, 2026, right? So it's still within the time frame that we saw when we were drawing lines over here, somewhere around July and November. So if we're looking at the average 30% drops of every 30% drop, that puts us around the August time frame, right? So we can expect maybe if a 30% drop were to happen, it would be somewhere around August. But secondly, like, okay, let's look at the 40% drop now, because maybe it's a bigger 40% drop or even a 50% drop, right? So just looking at the 40% drop, on average, this takes around 161 days if it does happen. And if it happens from this point in time, this will also put us around August 24. And if we extend this to even a 50% drop, 50% drops are a bit rare, right? We might not even get there. Even with these projections, 47 was the thing. But if it does get to the 50% drop, it's around 222 days on average when it happens. So if this point in time, 50% drop were to happen, that would put us around November 23, right? So this gives us an idea of when to expect it to happen. Right now, for example, isn't the latest date that we're expecting the drop from, right? We expected this 30% drop, this 36% drop to happen from this low, right? Let's just check, yeah. So it happened from this low, which was around, um, where was this? Um, this was around February 7, 2026, right? So if we change the projection from latest to dated, so 2026, oops, 2026. When was it? February. It's around February 5. Yeah. So we're referencing the February 5 date. 0205. And we're expecting this. Let's just say it's a 40% drop, right? So 0205 2026. So if we do peg this 40% drop in February, that would put us around July, July 17, for us to experience that next drop, right? Which is kind of still within like the bounds of what we were drawing earlier, right? We're saying July to November. And this is actually more systematic, this one, because if we look at it, we can also see the standard deviation. So there's a standard deviation of 121 days. So if we can put like a sort of upper bound to this. So like if we add 121 here, which makes it 282. Yeah, so here it's saying it could be until November 14, or right, it'll be around November 14 where it'll like bottom at around $43,000, or it'll be from July 14. So that can be a reasonable expectation of when it can happen, somewhere from July to November, which is kind of the same as this one. So right, you can see um, these kinds of two methods are complementary to each other, right? So that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. So here we can give like it just showing you how you can get an idea of when lows are gonna happen, because it's really hard. The markets are pretty hard psychologically. They wait and wear you down, right? So what usually happens with Bitcoin is it gets these huge explosive moves that happen like, you know, just in weeks, and then it just stays range bound for months, right? So for example, just to illustrate that, if we look at this time range, let's get this time range. Where's the time range? I think it's up here. Time range. Where is it? Long, short, position, bar, sector. Oh, there, date range. Okay, so yeah, so basically, crypto moves really fast and then stalls for like months, right? It'll have the movements in mere weeks, and then you're stuck waiting for the next move for months, wondering what happened. Like, hey, this thing was going up so fast. Now I'm just waiting for nothing, right? And to illustrate that, you can actually see that. So for example, this entire movement, when it went up, right, only happened in 74 bars, right? But when it was range bound, once it made that move, it's not it then became range bound. Like, well, it depends on what you consider range, but like this entire range before the next like major drop happened in like 418 bars. You can see the massive difference between those two bars, right? So this big move happened in like 70 days, while this move took almost more than a year to play out before it dropped again, right? So crypto is sneaky like that because it can make you feel like euphoric when everything is moving really fast, and then it makes you depressed because now nothing is literally happening. So for example, also like this little move over here, you can see this move, this giant move happened in 32 bars, right? But then it was a range bound from that top to the next move, which happened like 208 bars, right? So it took 1 month for it to move, like, took 1 month for it to move 78% up, and then it took 200 days for it to do nothing, right? So this is why crypto psychologically is pretty hard to navigate because, you know, big movements happen in like weeks or months, and then it stays stuck for like almost a year or like like many months. So like psychologically it's hard because you're seeing the prices move so fast and then not at all, right? But at least with this method, you can get an idea of when to mentally prepare yourself for the next move to happen, right? So right now, people have been waiting for the next move. So instead of waiting and wondering when, you have a clear idea of when you can expect it, right? So maybe don't. Maybe it's fine. Maybe check out from crypto until November or October, right? And then that next drawdown might have happened already because according to these two methods, we can expect the next move to the next low somewhere between like July and November. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to talk to you guys about because it has been hard, even for me before, to navigate the market, wondering what's gonna happen next. And sometimes it is taxing to like just keep checking, keep wondering. But now if you have like end dates in mind, like okay, like I think that I will, be okay because I'm gonna know that somewhere from like July and October is when I should like really look at it rather than wondering every day when is it gonna happen. Right? It's much easier that way. Anyway, thank you guys. If you like this video or want to see the charts, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to see or use these charts, you can head over to the website lofi-ledger.com. It's a completely free resource that I made for you guys to use. Anyway, thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.